Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Armenian Music Project. I have an awesome flute player with me today, Yulia Musayelyan. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Since this is an Armenian show, I like to ask about the roots. I know you were born in Moscow. Tell me a little bit maybe about your background, your parents, and the journey to Moscow for your parents, I'm assuming.
Sure. So actually, I was born in Moscow, and both my parents were also born in Moscow. And the Armenian side of my family comes from my maternal grandfather. So I have his last name, Musayelyan. And he was also born in Moscow. So it's like a long, but his mother, my great grandmother, she was born in Karabakh. And, she was, they had escaped the genocide. And, so she ended up settling in Moscow.
Wow.
That was kind of the journey.
And the crazy thing is, it's so devastating to get the news now about Armenia and everything happening in that region. It's really crazy, especially considering everything that's happening around the world. In the U.S., around the world we have the pandemic, but also in the U.S., the elections are coming up. There's so much tension. I was talking to a friend last night, and I was telling him every time Armenians have some kind of a devastating historical things happening. For example, the genocide, World War I was happening, so people weren't really paying attention. When the first war with Azerbaijan started, Armenians also, and many post-Soviet states, had to dealing with things on their own because the Soviet Union was breaking up. It was with limited resources. It was really tough. And also the earthquake in Armenia. So it's always so tough, but our thoughts are with those who are, in Armenia and Artsakh, who are dealing with all of this. An interesting thing about you, moving on to your music career, is that I'm assuming, with most flute players, you started as a classical flute player and you were doing that for a while. What led you to jazz? And how did that transition happen?
Oh, that opens up, that's like a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been, I'm still kind of discovering, the path. But of course. So I as all kind of, musical kids in Russia who were lucky enough to, to have opportunities. I went to music school, since I was very little. So the jazz was not really a thing. I think it's not even a word I wasn't familiar with for many years. And then for many years after we moved here. So I followed this classical path. And then when I was 11, my family moved to the U.S. and I continued here. And, for a few years, I played in all possible, youth orchestras and groups and everything, basically. And because I was so young and I had started young, I think people kind of thought, oh, maybe she's a prodigy. And so I kind of rode that wave for a couple of years. And, and then I got older and I wasn't really disciplined enough to practice. And I think people kind of started to get the idea. But another thing that happened is I was in a high school that had a really rich music program, that wasn't just classical. It was a very strong classical program, but it had also a rich jazz program. And, kind of the music director ended up really being a kind of an inspiration for me. He opened up all these sonic possibilities, because I would just kind of hang out and eat lunch in the band room. I was one of those kids that felt safe in the music space. And I would just hear all this, different sounds that I had not been exposed to before. And then I think one day, maybe there was a beginning improv class, and the pianist was absent, and I happened to be in the room, and I was like, oh, I'll do it, I'll give it a shot. And then from that, it was kind of like, oh, listen to this, and I'd listen to that, and then, oh, play this, and I kind of started with that, so it was like this curiosity thing, this discovery of new sounds that I just didn't know existed. So I'm still discovering, I think.
That's awesome. Well, as with some flute players, every time you're a flute player and you're trying to get into jazz, a lot of people, at least from my experiences and from what I've heard from colleagues, are like, well, why don't you double on, why don't you play sax? You'll play some flute. Have you ever explored the saxophone world?
You know, I haven't really. I did borrow a clarinet one summer because I thought this is going to be a project. I'll try it, and I got kind of a decent sound on the lower range, and it's I just didn't kind of go with it. I think a lot of people, do, kind of go with that path, and it actually really helps if you want to get kind of doubling work, if you want to play theater shows and all that stuff. It really opens up a lot more work possibilities, But for me, I've always felt like I'm still trying to just barely play flute, in a sense. Like, so I'll play flute, piccolo, and alto flute and bass flute. And I think that's enough for me, to practice for a lifetime.
But you're also on your trio album, the one you sent me recently, which is fantastic, Landscapes, you played some duduk.
I play a little bit, yeah. I dabble.
So how'd that happen? Just the Armenian roots called you to duduk, or was there something else?
It's such an amazing sound, that I've always kind of once I discovered Armenian folk music, it was just kind of like, again, it was this whole other world of music, and I actually have a few people that brought me, one of my roommates brought me. She's Armenian. A great Armenian pianist, actually, Sofia Milikian. She brought me a duduk from Armenia. So, I started to kind of try it a little bit, and it's, I've discovered that it was absolutely impossible at the moment because it's just so different, from flute. And then I got another duduk as a present from an uncle that came to visit. And this little by little, I started kind of making a little bit of progress, and then I started to get a few gigs playing duduk, it's a great motivator, nothing like a gig to actually get you to really practice. And I took some lessons from Pierre Boulez, who's a fantastic clarinetist and duduk expert. And I'm still kind of trying it. I feel like it's my way of trying to connect to my Armenian roots.
Well, you have more than that. I mean, both your albums that I have, you connect really well. I know you have other pieces, other works on those albums, but you still stay very much connected to the Armenian roots through your contribution through music, which is, I think, fantastic. I want to switch gears completely and throw you off and ask you a question you probably didn't expect to be asked.
Okay.
Spartak Moscow. Tell me about this passion for soccer. I know you're a big soccer fan.
Yeah. Well, actually, CSKA.
Was it CSKA? Okay.
CSKA.
I guess I was thinking about, I think Yulia Musayelyan, the Armenian soccer player, he played for Spartak. I guess that's what confused me.
Did he play for Spartak?
I think he played for Spartak. It's either one of those big Russian clubs. I thought it was Spartak. Okay, so you're a CSKA fan. Tell me a little bit about this passion.
It's I think it's maybe a little bit strange for some people, but yeah, I don't know. I was always, even in my music school, I was like the girl that would want to like play soccer with the boys during in between classes, and I would always be goalie. It was pretty terrible, but
you still play?
No, I don't, but I'm a great audience member.
I'm
a Twitter fan.
I know you. I follow you, and I could tell you're constantly watching. And I just checked Yulia Musayelyan. He did play for Spartak for a couple of years, so
okay, all right.
That's why I think I had the Armenian connection there, and then I thought of you. I think I confused it that way, but yeah, I see how you follow. It's really, really cool. It's fantastic. I know you've done at least one collaboration with the great, legendary Pierre Boulez. Tell me about the short experience of working with him.
Oh, he has one of the most clear ideas of what he wants to hear. He has just some of these really great, amazing ears. That's the one thing. It was that's what I took away from that experience. It was at the end of my undergrad at Manhattan School of Music, and he came to do. We did a production of his piece for 3 flutes, and ensemble, so L'Explosion Fixe. And then he also did a couple of student composer workshops, which, you know, and I played for some of those in some student pieces. So it was really interesting to hear his feedback. But basically what I really remember is in rehearsals, he would be so specific. You know, he would, it's a lot of kind of sonic information. You know, his pieces are really dense and very intricate, and you know, you kind of hear this wash of sound, and he'd stop, oh, no, second trumpet, you know, it's that C sharp, it's a little sharp, you can bring it down, you know, and it was really refreshing, I think, to me at least, you know, to have someone with such clarity, and to be, you know, he really stated it, and, you know, he'd have these 7/13 of these very complex rhythms, and that's exactly what he expected to hear. You know, it wasn't a suggestion, which in a lot of contemporary music, it's kind of like, oh, it's just a gesture. No, it was extremely specific.
Wow. And you have a couple of flute mentors, one of them from Manhattan School of Music, one of them from NYU, I think, Robert Dick. And before we got on, I told you he's been on my podcast, Let's Talk Off the Podium, a couple of times for 2 episodes. And a little bit about 2 of your mentors and what you've learned and experienced with them.
Sure. Yeah, they're so different and very, in many ways, very complementary. My teacher for my undergrad, for my 4 years of Manhattan School of Music, where I did a classical degree, is Maria Martin, who's just fantastic. She's just, you know, world-class soloist. And what I really loved about her, beyond the, you know, just the excellent musicianship and everything, is her her commitment to music. You know, there are some things that I wanted to play, especially towards the end when I was really kind of getting into more contemporary stuff, and I was actually starting to transcribe Armenian folk music and then rearrange them, and you know, things like that, and you know, so some things that weren't necessarily her kind of, you know, she's a very classically trained flutist, as you know, as most flutists, I think. At least at that time, that was the expectation. But she was extremely supportive in helping me, kind of letting me find my voice. You know, so that I'm really thankful for that, because I feel like a lot of, especially in classical music, I'm not going to go like broader than just flute, because that's what I have experience with. I feel like there is still a little bit of a stigma, like, oh, you want to do non-classical music? You know, why? Yeah. And she never questioned that. No. She was just, you know, kind of let me be while you know, while really kind of helping me and guiding me and supporting me and inspiring me, which is, I think, it's so important, you know, for teachers, like kind of master teachers. When you get to that level, when it's not really just all about the notes, and it's really beyond that. It's what you're trying to communicate. I feel like that's so important to kind of to help your students find their own voice, you know, instead of finding what the teacher's voice thinks it should be, you know. And she really definitely kind of gave me that that freedom. And with Robert Dick, you know, again, that kind of opening of the doors, sonic possibilities for flute. You know, he invented a whole new language for flute. Sonic language, which is, you know, it's amazing, you know, kind of, it's just like a world of its own. But in that way, it also kind of encouraged me to keep looking for my own voice, and that, you know, that it's okay to kind of do something that maybe hasn't been done before and may not be accepted for a while, you know, because his, you know, the way his career kind of has gone over the decades, he's been really doing this thing, and he had to really kind of fight for it, fight for his own voice, and that's what I got, you know, that's what I took away, this kind of like, okay, it's okay to fight for what I, you know, the sound that I want.
Yeah. Have you ever played on his glissando head joint?
I haven't. No, I'm very intrigued. I've seen some videos.
Yeah, he came on the second time he came on. The first time we talked about it, and he wanted to show some things. And my podcast, Let's Talk Off the Podium, at the time was audio only. And he's like, "Oh, it's okay, another time." And he came on the second time. At that point, I had transitioned into doing a bit more with the podcast, and he picked up the flute and showed some things. It was really cool.
Oh, wow.
It was fun to watch. Jazz
Great.
flute players. Who are some inspirational jazz flute players? People who influenced you, who you looked up to as you transition into playing more jazz?
You know, there's so many great players, like, kind of over the ages. I have to confess, I actually didn't listen to that much jazz flute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I kind of felt like I didn't want to fall into someone else's
Mm-hmm.
style and vocabulary, which is, I mean, it's a little bit of an excuse. I think I could have explored that more, but like Hubert Laws,
Yeah.
for everything, kind of, as again, as that someone who really shows through his career and through the different music that he plays at such a high level that it's possible,
Mm-hmm.
because I think in the end it's all music, and there's so much stigma around, oh, this is jazz flute, oh,
Yeah.
this is classical flute, and
Yeah.
it's kind of separated, and I feel like that gap is getting a little bit more bridged,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still a little bit of a fear, I think, in classical musicians to to improvise, and there's just I feel like there's still so much more to be done.
Yeah. Since you have over the years developed such a passion for Armenia with playing the duduk, playing various tracks on your albums, have you ever been back to Armenia?
I've actually never been to Armenia.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when we're able to travel again, it's definitely one of the top priorities on my travel list.
And it would be great to see you actually perform there. That would be fantastic. I'm sure, Armenia during the Soviet Union and even now has a really big jazz scene. For a small country, it has a lot of jazz musicians. I mean,
well, I've collaborated with some Armenian musicians, jazz musicians who are
Mhm.
now living here, which is very rich in jazz talent.
Yeah. So some musicians you've collaborated with, this is something I've asked with all the guests who have been on Armenian Music Project, an Armenian artist that you like, you enjoy listening to their music, that you would love to collaborate with. If there's one or two Armenian artists that come to mind.
Oh, I mean, there's many, but I've had the pleasure of playing with Vardan Ovsepian when he was based in Boston, and he had this. I think you also played with him, right?
I've worked with
LA?
him. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and he had this really fantastic project called Voce, which is kind of one of the first times I heard incorporation of folk instruments in the jazz setting, and so like diatonic instruments and non-diatonic is really very, very cool. And on my first quartet CD, Vardan is actually the pianist.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was the last thing he recorded before moving out west.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
I'd love to play with him again.
Yeah, well, I hope to see you play. I've enjoyed your music over the years. We connected a bit more in the past month or so, but I've followed your career for a while now, so I know the things that you've done over the years. Switching gears a little bit again, you're teaching at Berklee College of Music. How's that experience? A little bit about teaching during the pandemic, if you've been doing that, and also just about the experience of putting the professor hat on, I guess.
Sure. So I started teaching at Berklee 3 years ago, since I just started my fourth year. And I'm teaching in the ear training department. So no flute teaching at this point, but I'm teaching ear training and solfege and also ensembles. So I have a musical theater orchestra that I'm directing now, and this semester I actually started directing that ensemble right as the school transitioned to remote learning. So that's been quite a trip, doing an ensemble over Zoom where because of the time delay, it's impossible for people to play together in real time. So, and I'm teaching this semester. Berklee's all remote, all online. So it's been kind of an adjustment, I think, for everybody. Obviously everything has been. So it's in a way where at least we're all in the same boat. So there's kind of this understanding. There's a commitment that, okay, we're gonna make the best of this, and I feel like there's some things that I definitely really miss. Obviously beyond ensemble playing, that's it's just such a different experience online because of the things you have to do. Now we're doing recording projects, so in a way it's kind of gotten everyone, the students and the faculty alike, to really have to learn a lot of new skills really quickly. So the learning curve has been absolutely amazing. Recording, mixing, editing, new software, just kind of a lot of this stuff. But yeah, in a way, I guess that's the silver lining, if there is such a thing, because in the real world, one of the things that, we really try to, or I guess I really try to pass on to my students, which I feel like in a higher education setting for music really needs to be said again and again, is this idea that, hey, we need to be flexible and we need to adjust. I think much more even as musicians that want to work, because of, look what's happening now. It's absolutely crazy. We've all had to reinvent ourselves, and every skill that we never thought we'd need to use, everything comes in handy, and it just opens up new possibilities for work. And I feel like we're all in that together. So it is what it is.
Yeah. You lived in Europe for at least 6 years. Why the move to Boston?
Well, I lived in New York, for 6 years, I guess. And I did all my school there, and I moved to Boston because my boyfriend lived here. So, yeah, and he wasn't in a position that he could move to New York, and so that was kind of an easy decision.
Wow,
that's for me in that time. Yeah.
What does it take to put an album together? I assume it's so tough to pick some of the pieces that you pick. Is there some kind of a theme? How do you pick the pieces or the songs that you pick for a certain album? Just maybe go through one of your albums and explain how that process works for you.
Sure. Well, I guess for the last album that I put together, my quartet, which came out 3 months ago already. Time is a different plane. It came out in June. That album actually ended up being, about 10 years worth of material that I've kind of worked and reworked and played with my quartet over the years. And, recording can be kind of so chaotic, being able to record and having time to record and having the means to record. And so I just didn't really have any chance to kind of plan it. I tried to tie everything together, I think, in the end, and it makes sense because it's all, my originals and my arrangements. But in a way, I feel like every record, at least for me so far, it's been kind of, a physical record, for lack of a better word, of where I am as a musician right now. Right, so there are even some tunes that I'm not crazy about, but I want to have them down on tape because that's what I'm playing at the moment. That's what I wrote. I wrote it. So it's, in a way, it's kind of like it's a way of like saying goodbye, to this music. It's a little strange at this moment because we didn't have a chance to tour and play this music, after the album came out because of the pandemic. But in a way, it's kind of like closure. It's like it opens up possibilities for just playing it and having a product. But it's also musically for me, it's closure, so I can move on and write other stuff, and and then have something else, musically that I'm looking forward to.
Wow. And the album you're talking about is called Unsaid. Why Unsaid? Is there a hidden meaning? What's behind there?
Sure. It's kind of a few things I think I was trying to get at. So Unsaid, first of all, it's an instrumental album. So there's some things just kind of plainly that you cannot express in words. So, we have this very kind of almost like a primal way of communicating just with sound. And there's a few things that we are able to communicate that I would not be able to put into words. So that in that way it's unsaid. And then also it's the sound that we communicate, or whatever. Once you play it, once it's there, you can't really take it back. So it's kind of like a statement that's there. I don't know. That's something tangible.
No.
I don't know if that's getting too. I'm putting too much meaning into this word, but that's. I think that's what, for me, that's what it captured.
So with all this music talk, and one of my favorite questions, no matter where I'm doing an interview, whether it's on radio or podcast, is some things that you do that are outside of music that you're passionate about. I know it's the watching the Russian League, but what else? Are there other passions?
Yeah. Actually, not just the Russian League. I try to follow, as much as I can, the different
MLS.
Not so much MLS, unfortunately, just because I don't have like the means to watch it. But the Argentinian leagues, La Liga, Premier League, and so that keeps me busy when soccer is like in season.
Yeah.
I like puzzles a lot. Jigsaw puzzles. It's something that calms me down and helps me kind of put everything together in my head.
Wow.
And I'm a big fan of everything spy related. So I read a lot of kind of real life spy novels and all that stuff.
In English or Russian or both?
Mostly in English, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it's something that kind of fascinates me. It's been something that's fascinated me forever. So
yeah,
so I got a lot of chances to read.
Yeah, during this time.
The summer, yeah.
What's next? Any projects that you have in mind that you're like, when this pandemic is over, I really want to do this, I want to do that? Are there projects in mind that you really want to get to?
Yeah, a few. So I have, actually it's already recorded. And it's already mixed, and so I have like another album of a tango project, also with my quartet, but it's different repertoire. It's all my arrangements of tango, of some piazzolla, and then of some tango standard repertoire. That's kind of I'm looking for to kind of see how I'm going to put that record out. So that's kind of the next immediate thing, and I've really been, over the years, I really kind of wanted to explore more folklore from different, different cultures, and I'm kind of such a mix of different, cultures: Armenian, Russian, Jewish. I feel like there's so much in folk music that kind of brings everything together. It's, in a way, it's so particular to each cultural identity, but there's so many things that are kind of unifying about it. So I've been playing around with arranging some folk music for multiple flutes and recording it at home. So I'm hoping to continue to do that, and I can't wait to be able to play live music.
Yeah. I remember a couple of months ago, or maybe it was a month ago, you played at some club, but it was just a band there, I think. Do I remember this correctly?
Yeah, and actually it was back in May.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like a kind of a pre-release show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was an empty jazz club, and we were so happy. It was just such a joyous experience to make music live in real time with other musicians, and at that point it was still kind of the height, almost the height of, New York was still a hot spot. Boston was at the beginning quite a hot spot. So it was really, it was like cathartic to really be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I really hope that people kind of take away from this necessity, to make music and to listen to live music, because I think it brings something that no recording can ever capture.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Advice to young musicians: you've had a great career and you've done so many things already with so many albums and collaborations, and you've also worked on maybe a couple of dozen albums with other artists as well. So you've had such a great career. What advice would you give to young musicians, maybe specifically to young musicians who want to pursue a career in jazz flute or non-classical flute, and maybe just a general advice to young musicians in general?
Sure. So this is something I keep saying to my students over and over, and I really wish I had listened when I was their age. And it's do the work, early. Don't skip on the work. Really practice your craft. It's not something that you can kind of fake. It's so important, and start early. Be disciplined. It's okay if you don't catch that concert or whatever, but I feel like it's especially now, when we're in this kind of Twitter culture. Everything has to be really short, and the attention spans are just getting shorter and shorter. Don't be afraid to really dig in and kind of spend time with whatever it is, with whether it's with your instrument or working out your composition, or listening to something that interests you. It's this don't be afraid to get obsessive in a good way with practicing, with listening, with transcribing, with just being curious, because there's so much out there, so much information, musically at this point. It's before you had to go to the library at the time that it was open, check out or like sign out a record player, go get the record. And so it was like a really deliberate effort to do that. And now you just open up YouTube and you're in this universe of sound. And I feel like it's done two things. It has all this, it's an infinite amount of material to go through, which is so inspiring, but it's so overwhelming that I think a lot of young musicians and, and everyone really, we're just kind of, we're a little bit, we know it's there, so we don't get that curious.
Yeah. So
I guess my advice would be to stay curious, and kind of do something about it actively, be proactive.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to add before we end today?
Oh, I don't know. You're a flutist as well, so I kind of want to hear a little bit about your how you made the transition from flute, from playing into conducting.
Yeah, well, the transition, I think it was pretty quick and drastic. I was 22. I was really 21, 22. I was really wanting to explore other things, and at that point, I was already I had already really was interested in jazz and other genres, from Ian Anderson, from Jethro Tull to Herbie Mann and various other flute players and jazz artists and rock artists. So I was interested in those things, but I still wanted something new. So I decided to start an orchestra and go that route. And you mentioned collaboration with Vardan Ovsepian. I think it was very early on when he moved to LA, and at that point, I was already in conducting, but I did I did a couple of concerts with him and conducted, and also played a little bit. But that's what it was. I miss playing a little bit, and I still play a little bit for my son. He's one. He's a year old, and 1 year and 1 month old now. And I still play a little bit for him, but nothing in public, nothing like you.
I haven't played in public for a while either. Hoping to change that.
Well, thanks so much for joining me. Hopefully, I'll see you in person one day when everything is better in the world.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'll have a link to your website and to your album so people could check it out. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Tigran.